You're listening to Change Your POV Podcast, episode 172.
Do you remember we were driving, I think it was to do like flotation therapy, and you showed me like the mountain valley thing, like you drew it out on a freaking board.
Oh, yeah, for converting military experience.
Converting military experience to civilianese, and that like clicked.
Right.
So see, that was your mentorship to me on something that because you only know what you know.
Right, exactly.
Right? I mean, you hear us say this all the time. You only know what you know, but that's what mentorship is. That's what, it's passing on this knowledge.
Change Your POV Podcast Network is dedicated to helping veterans become just as successful out of uniform as we were when we were in. By far, hands down, the number one best way to achieve success outside of the military is through mentorship. This is something Bennett and I didn't have when we got out, and it's probably the reason why both of us struggled when we did get out. It's also probably the reason we both are so passionate about mentorship. So passionate, in fact, that we sat down to record this episode. We looked up at the end and realized that we went on for 2 hours. So this is the first of a 2-part series. Check out part 2 next week on episode 174. But first, I'd like to read you a review that I received recently from a mentee of mine, Whitney Priest. And she says, quote, "Eddie is a great mentor with loads of useful information and a true passion for helping others get ahead. One of my favorite things about Eddie is the way that he describes things by using analogies on more complicated subject matter that is put into everyday terminology. He warms up to you quickly, offers help even after the mentor call, set up ways to keep communications open, critiqued my resume, and overall helped me steer my boat in a more of the direction it should be going. Thanks a million, Eddie, and I look forward to speaking with you again in the future." And I read that not to boast or to pat myself on the back, but there's a piece in here that I wanted you to really listen to, and that is, she says, "Help me steer my boat in a more of the direction that it should be going." Because that's what mentorship is all about. It's not about telling somebody what they should do or what they need to do. It's all about just saying, all right, you're now at a fork in the road. If you take the path to the left, this is what you could expect. If you take the path to the right, then this is what you can expect. At the end of the day, it's still up to the mentee to make that decision for themselves and take whichever path they see is most suited for their life. The mentor just helps them see what some of the possibilities, challenges, and obstacles that they may need to overcome along the way. We hope you enjoy this series and hope even more that you consider seeking mentorship or becoming a mentor yourself. Hello, folks, and welcome to Change Your POV Podcasting Network. I am your host, Eddie Lazary.
And I am Bennett Tanton.
And if you're wondering what that's all about, this whole Change Your POV Podcasting Network thing, I don't know if we've ever really officially announced anything yet on the show, but I'm not going to do that this show. You're just going to have to stay tuned. In a future show, we're going to actually be doing a special episode where we introduce this new concept of the Change Your POV Podcasting Network. What does that mean? And the different shows we're going to be introducing and their hosts. And you're like, ooh, this sounds interesting. Well, it is. Stay tuned. You're going to have to figure that out in a later episode. It won't be too long, a couple weeks. We'll be coming out with something official to get everybody on here. We'll do kind of a round robin or a round table or whatever the hell we want to call it. And it'll be really good. So what are you doing over there, Bennett? You playing around with your Prozac or what is that?
I yawned.
Sounds like you got a bottle of pills.
Mm-mm.
Oh.
Oh, maybe. No pills.
Oh. What the hell's that noise?
Sorry about that. I don't know.
Huh. All right.
You still hear it?
No.
Okay. I don't know. That was weird.
Sound like you're reaching for your bottle of pills. I was like,
no.
No. You're like, no, if I was, it wouldn't be Prozac. Wouldn't be
Prozac.
Oxy or I don't know, some crazy shit. No, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. So it's early Sunday morning because we normally record Saturday mornings, but we had a scheduling conflict. So we are both recording up early Sunday morning, which is awesome. And I'm nursing a very large cup of coffee, and it's sweet. And I'm very thankful. Some days I'm more thankful for coffee than others. Today is one of them.
Do you use flavored creamer?
I do, hazelnut.
Okay.
And I found that hazelnut brings out the actual, like, the roast of the coffee a little bit. You know what I mean?
Really?
Yeah.
Right now would be a great time to do like a commercial spot for a coffee company, but
yes, but we won't.
But we won't.
No, because today's sponsor is none other than Patreon, folks. And here, really quick, Patreon. Let me talk to you about Patreon here, real quick, while I sip on my coffee and Bennett chews on his pills. I'm kidding. We have some really, really big plans in the future, and we are asking you to be a part of it. We are a couple of military veterans trying to make a difference in the world in any way we know how. We figured what better way to do that than to create a podcast. So, Change Your POV Podcast was born. The ability to change your point of view, we discovered, was the secret ingredient needed to becoming as successful out of uniform as we were when we were in. We have some amazing sponsors and other affiliate programs that help defer some of the costs of running the show, but we realized a couple of things. One, in order to take our message as far as we can, including hosting conferences, meetups, and creating workshops, and to give back the best we can to the veteran community, we need additional tools, training, and resources that, folks, well, it costs money. And number two, we found that a lot of folks just want to support the work that we are doing without any strings attached, just because they love our content, or maybe because they love our bodies, one or the other. How awesome is that?
Probably it, for sure.
Probably, I'm sure. Patreon now gives you and us the opportunity to do just that. We don't expect or assume anyone will contribute any more to our show than just simply listening to the podcast. We really appreciate that all by itself, more than you'll ever know. But if you feel like contributing more, well, we've got a way to do that. You can head on over to changeyourpov.com/support us to learn how. We would love as many patrons on Patreon as possible. So come check it out. Be a part of our family. There's a lot of really cool perks and bonuses and extra content that you get. One of the biggest things that you get is extra episodes that we do that we don't release here on the show, that you will only get or will only be available over on Patreon. And then the other thing we've got going on is every Tuesday we do the POV TV, which we do that live on our Facebook page, and it's only available on Facebook for the first 24 hours, and then we take it down, and it's then available for the rest of its life over on Patreon with a free PDF download of everything we talked about with the links and everything, which is really, really cool. We've done 2 episodes so far. This coming Tuesday will be episode 3. And it's getting easier and more interesting, and not as messed up, not as hosed. But yeah, it's fun. I had a lot of good time. So welcome to the show, and Bennett, I'm really excited to talk today about. So this is April. We're talking all things execution, and I mean execution like getting shit done, not execution like let's go throw a hangman's noose over a tree kind of execution. Just to be clear, we're not talking about that.
Some guillotine action.
Yeah. Have you seen that? Sorry, sidetrack here. That it's kind of like a 3-series documentary about the Nazi super war machines on Netflix.
No, but I did. I don't know if it was involved. I saw this one video of this railgun being moved.
Yeah.
Is that kind of what we're talking about?
Yeah.
So it was but it was restored. The railgun was restored. Dude, what an evilly awesome piece of machinery that thing was.
So seriously, cue it up on Netflix. It's called Nazi War Machines or something like that. It's 3 seasons. And each season has about, I don't know, 8 or 10 episodes or something like that.
And that's on Netflix.
Yeah, it is. And when I first started watching it, I thought it was just a 1 season, 8-part series.
one and off.
Yeah, but it ended up being like 3 seasons. So I'm in like season 2 right now. And here's the thing, man. I mean, no one can argue the fact that Hitler was just a psychopath, right? And like, I mean, the shit that he did to the Jews and with genocide and all of that. I mean, that is absolutely 100% unforgivable. I will say though that because of his lunacy and his psychotic beliefs about the world and his just paranoia, I guess, he funded and allowed for a lot of advancements in technology as it pertains to warfare. And coming out of Germany, out of World War II, are some of the earliest forms of things. I mean, basically, his V2 rocket is like the basis of space flight, landing on the moon. Like, he is that military is like the foundation of our current like Tomahawk missiles. He paved the way for just, I mean, you watch that and you're like, holy cow, like if that wouldn't have happened, we would be literally decades behind the world and technology that we know today, by far. And it's one of the things I think we need to do a show on at some point, and that's talking about, we often talk about the horrors of war, right, and the bad things that come out of it. But how many good things come out of war? Like, because before we entered in the war on terror back in 2001, we were still fighting in a military that was going to the National Training Center and training to fight the old Warsaw Pact, old Cold War Russia.
Yeah,
you know what I mean?
I was training this fight the Spetsnaz.
Right, exactly.
It's what I keep laughing about. I'm like, Jesus.
Yeah.
How things change.
And now nobody's going to NTC to learn how to fight the Spetsnaz, right? We are now being trained to actually fight the wars that we will fight in the future.
Well, it's way more asymmetric.
Yes, it is. Absolutely. And it's causing MOSs to morph and to change. And
the crazy part about that, though, bro, is that there's still these old war horses, I like to call them, that are like, they're so stuck on this like tank battle.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Right.
Obviously, it's what MOS they must be, or where they started, or whatever. But it's like, man, that's not going to happen.
Right.
Like, what? I mean, it may happen, but again, can we be prepared for more than just the Warsaw Pact?
Exactly.
Again,
Right.
Or Saddam, or because you know how that turned out.
Right.
Oh, they've got the 4th largest army in the world. Oh.
Yeah, but the conventional warfare lasted what, a couple of weeks?
Yeah,
at the most.
Yeah, at the most.
And then it immediately turned into, like, once everybody abandoned their tanks,
house.
Yeah, and it turned into this guerrilla warfare. Everybody lost their uniforms and went back into the we can talk about this forever, but just not just the changes in military way of doing things, but look at the advances that we've had in like medical technology in terms of like prosthetics and traumatic brain injuries and the research that's behind. I mean, we have grown significantly in the way of medical research and treatment as a result of the conflict, the war on terror. And unfortunately, it takes bad things like that to happen in order to bring forth the good things in it too. So I don't know, maybe we could save that for another show. But today we're talking about execution, and one of the things that you and I particularly are very interested in, and that is this idea of mentorship and coaching. And we've done it in our own way, separately. And I want to get into a little bit of how we have done that in the past, and then some ventures that we are exploring about how to do that together with the Travis Mannion, and then we'll get into Veterati. How's that sound?
Sounds awesome.
All right, so coaching and mentorship, this is something that I've always enjoyed. I enjoyed developing my soldiers when I was in the military, coaching them and mentoring them. And in a lot of cases, I actually continued that even after I got out. And I moved into corporate, and I was doing some mentorship and coaching with some guys that I work with and that worked for me. And as a matter of fact, I just got a text message from one of them last night. I no longer work with him, but we still continue to touch base, and I help answer questions and kind of coach him and mentor him through different things. And he's like, "Hey man, 4 more classes and I'm done with my bachelor's degree. I'm so excited." And I'm really, really excited for him, because that was one of the things that I coached him through, was actually going to school, going to college, getting an education. And he was very apprehensive at first about doing that. And we just walked through very, step by step, instead of trying to eat the entire elephant, eating the elephant one bite at a time. And I was meeting with him on a weekly basis, and we were having, coaching sessions. And I said, okay, I want you to actually pick one of 2 of these 3 colleges, local college universities. And so he picked 2 of them. I said, all right, I want you now to go, and I want you to just make an appointment to go and sit down and talk with somebody. That's it. That's all I don't want you to think about going back to school. I just want you to make appointments with 2 of these schools. So he did. He made 2 appointments. And then we met again, and I said, all right, so now I want you to pick one of the 2, and I want you to actually go in and sit down and talk to somebody. Just talk to them about, different types of classes, the culture, the environment. I just want you to walk through the front doors and just go talk to somebody. And so he did. And then he came back. He said, "Oh, that wasn't as bad as I thought." I mean, because in his mind he had this idea of what college was going to be like, right? And it was much, much scarier than he realized it ended up being. And when he walked through the front doors of this college, he realized, there's actually people walking through the halls that I can look at, and I can almost see me in their shoes. And so he was able to actually visualize himself going to school now, right? And so we just kind of stepped through and we coached. And next thing you know, he took just 1 class. I said, just sign up for 1 class. And it was the Introduction to College Life or something like that. It was like it's a required course. You get 3 credits, but it really, you know what I mean? It's literally, you just walk through and you get a tour of the campus, and you walk through the different programs, and it's just literally an introduction to college. And so that's the first class he did, and he came back. He says, "Wow, that wasn't that bad." And I was like, "Yep." And you got your very first 3 credits. And he's like, "Wow," So now he's like, he's starting to put little notches in his belt, right? Figuratively, of course, but. And that's really the essence of execution. Instead of looking at the end, the objective, like even in the military, right? We always knew what the objective was and where it was, but we weren't solely focused on the objective, because along the way we had to stay within our lanes. We had to make sure we executed and crossed each phase line along the way. And there was sub-objectives or mini goals that we had to accomplish as we were achieving each phase line. And and there was checkpoints along the way, and there was a timeline that we had to meet, and then finally you had this convergence of all these elements, because you had elements on your left flank and your right flank. We're talking conventional military combat here now, and then everybody converges onto the objective, and there's prep fire, and then all of this, you advance and all this, right? So I mean, it's all good to get to the objective and to defeat the enemy and whatever it is your plan was. But if you didn't focus on each of the steps along the way and executing the many things that you had to do within that time frame, within those limits, then you never did get to the objective. And so execution is really no different. And that's all I did for him, is I broke it down. I said, don't picture yourself walking across a stage, getting your undergraduate bachelor's degree, diploma or whatever, right? I said, don't picture that. That's too far down the road, man. Picture just sitting in class and meeting new people and learning about new things. And that's really the essence of execution, is taking things a little bit, one bite at a time, one step at a time. I think the old Chinese proverb that says, the journey of 1,000 miles begins with a single step, right? And that's just it. If you think about your destination 1,000 miles from now, man, it's going to seem too daunting, too big, too much of a task. But if you look at just like when you run out those long ass road marches, those forced marches. You've been on those, I'm sure. These guys are like, oh, I can't do it. I can't. It's like, listen, you see that telephone pole right there? Yes. Okay. Just walk to that telephone pole, man. Just focus on that telephone pole. And then you get to that telephone pole.
God, I'm glad I don't have to do that.
Hey, remember that?
It's the worst, man.
Look up there, man. You see that stop sign? You see that stop sign? Just go to the stop sign, man. Just go to the stop sign.
Yeah, I used to actually like my twisted ass mind. I used to like that shit because you'd see everybody sucking.
Yeah.
And I was one of those people that when everyone else was sucking, I got more energy.
Yeah.
I don't know if I was like a vampire in that aspect, but
right.
It worked for me.
Yeah. One of the things that I found useful, and again, this is all relative to execution, getting shit done, is I always, now as a squad leader, as an NCO, your job ultimately is to get the job done, but to try your best to keep the morale of your guys up at the same time. And one of the ways I was able to do that, and I realized this really, really early on, I think I ended up learning it from one of my chiefs when I was a Joe. But what I would do is, of course, orders would come down. Like, we would be out in the field, and we wouldn't exactly know when we were going to roll back, right? And we had an idea that we would be out there for a couple of weeks, but we didn't know exactly what day we would come back. And my guys would always ask, hey, Sergeant Lasry, like, when are we done? When are we going back to the rear? And even if I knew it was Friday, like, I would never tell them Friday. I would be like, we're going back in Tuesday of the next week, following week. And they're like, Tuesday? Like, man, everybody, we went and got our chow that everybody was talking about going back on Friday. It's like, oh, no, we're not going back in Friday. We're going back in Tuesday.
Hell no, Tuesday.
Tuesday. And they're like, you sure? I'm like, dude, we're going back Tuesday. I said, even if the rest of the battalion goes back in on Friday, like, we're going in Tuesday. And they're like, oh, and when they finally just came to grips with the fact that they're going in on Tuesday, like, I knew in the back of my head that we were probably going in Friday. But here's what happened, right? On those rare occasions when the rest of the battalion were planning on going in on Friday and everybody told their guys that they were going in on Friday, but I was the only guys that was telling my guys that were going in on Tuesday, all of a sudden, when some shit happened and nobody actually went back in on Friday, they actually went back in on Saturday. Like, everybody else was pissed off because it was a day later than they expected. My guys were excited as hell because it was actually a few days earlier than they expected. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. And it's tamping expectations.
That's right. It's all about expectations. And so that's one of the things that I've always done when I was in the military is I always stretched, the worst case scenario, I stretched it out a little bit further. And, even when we got back from, in the rear, we couldn't go home until all the vehicles were washed and all the sensitive items were accounted for, the deal, and the safety briefing and all this shit. And
Remember that shit with the sensitive items?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, somebody lost their nods. Somebody freaking. Oh, my God. Everyone, then you dump everyone's bags. And, oh, my God. It was always some dumb thing. Like, no, it was already turned in.
Oh, no. Do you know what the dumb thing was? True story. We're standing in formation at 3 o'clock in the morning. Everybody's grounding their gear, and they're going through with flashlights, and they're inspecting everybody's shit because they can't find a pair of NVGs. Well, it turns out some brand new butter bar lieutenant came back, threw his ruck in the back of his car, and drove home. He didn't even stay for formation. Like, he was I'm a lieutenant, nobody could tell me shit.
Above and moronic.
Yeah, and he ended up driving home with his freaking NVGs in the back of his car. And, of course, we were all still a battalion looking for this damn thing, had no idea. They ended up having to go through every single serial number to figure out which one they were missing in order to figure out who it was signed to. And then they started looking for the lieutenant, realized they couldn't find him, called him. He was already in bed sleeping.
Yeah, he had already banged his wife and everything.
Yeah. So, yeah, needless to say, he ended up coming back to the battalion.
Yeah, and probably getting a ration.
Oh, man.
Hardcore. Man.
He went
first sergeant pulled him in the office and went, hey, LT, I understand that you're a lieutenant, but here's the deal. Because the commander's like, you better talk to this motherfucker before I do. Because I'm kill him. I'm going to choke him out. You know what I mean?
Yeah, hell yeah.
So the first sergeant's like, has to at least be respectful and do it and call him an asshole. Shit. I love it.
It's like, listen, sir, you know you fucked up, right? Okay.
You know you fucked up. Right?
So you're gonna
standing out there, look at him. Look at him. That was because of you.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is why lieutenants died in Vietnam.
That poor lieutenant. I mean, I say poor now, but it's like at the time everybody wanted to kill him, dude. Everybody of all ranks, right? I mean, this dude was like on an island all by himself. Yeah. Yeah.
Put him in a freaking. Oh man, I can only imagine. Anyway.
So anyway, all right. So
that's not the way to mentor.
No. So back to mentorship. So I've always loved coaching and mentoring. I love helping people achieve things that they probably couldn't see themselves achieving. You know what I'm saying? And
yeah, I do. Because basically my entire life revolves around this.
Yeah.
This I do for a living, literally.
So talk to us about different things that you do. Now, and I obviously do the coaching with the 7-day resume. I talk with guys to get them on, help them through the resume. I give coaching seminars and training classes at local universities around transition and converting military experience and resumes and interviewing and all that. And I would like you to kind of go through some of the things that you were doing, you know, even before you and I met and started down this road of podcasting.
Now what was really cool is when I met Eddie and he came up with the 7-day resume, it gave me like a great tool to use to help guys write resumes. Like, I mean, I knew the basics and I, did my own thing, but 7-day resume is so much easier, so much better than what I would do. I mean, I guess the ends were the same at the end of the day, but it was way more painful.
Right.
So that was one of the tools that I use a lot now is to use those principles. Mm-hmm. And I remember, do you remember we were driving? I think it was to do like flotation therapy. Mm-hmm. And you showed me like the mountain valley thing. Like you drew it out on a freaking board.
Oh yeah. For converting military experience.
Yeah, for converting military experience to civilianese. And that like clicked.
Right.
So see, that was your mentorship to me on something that because you only know what you know.
Right, exactly.
Right? I mean, you hear us say this all the time. You only know what you know. But that's what mentorship is. That's what, it's passing on this knowledge so you can be successful in being a better you, getting a better job. You know what I mean? All that stuff.
That's right.
So what I do is literally, I do more than anything is help guys more on a vocational aspect. So helping them find jobs, helping them, do job searches in different ways. Because a lot of times it's not like you can just get on Indeed and find a job.
Right.
So I teach guys to find jobs through their network. Because that's how most jobs are found. More so than any other way, form, or fashion. Usually jobs are found from somebody that you know.
Right.
Somebody's hiring this or somebody, I heard that there was a rumor that Joe Bob's freaking company is hiring, blah, blah, blah. So using your network and leveraging that to help you find employment. Obviously the resume portion goes hand in hand with that. That I also help teach soft skills, which people don't give as much credence to because people are like, Joe knows that. Well, Joe doesn't necessarily know how to shake a dude's hand the right way.
Right. We were talking about the other day about
it's these simple little nuances.
Yeah, like the button on your suit.
Right. How many times have you shook a hand with somebody and gone, well, that limp-wristed son of a bitch am going to get, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, like, dude, I need to go take a shower after that.
Right, like, that was weird. Like, why is his hand all greasy? And, or or just like loose, or like
a dead fish,
like a dead fish, or the converse side, dude, he just like ripped my hand off.
Right.
Or, because you have the meek, you really can tell a lot about somebody from their handshake.
Right.
And so I teach guys literally how to shake a hand correctly. Which I'm not going to go into right now because it's psychology goes into it and the whole thing. And so that Eddie brought up a really good point the other day about the buttoning of the suits. So if you have a 3-button suit, or any suit for that matter, except for like a double-breasted whatever, but who wears those anymore?
Right.
It's not like some zoot suit. You're not John Gotti, okay? Just saying.
Right.
Just a regular 2 or 3-button suit, right?
Yep.
You don't button the bottom button. You don't.
Right.
And believe it or not, civilians, folks, they see these things.
They do.
And it's a perception, because what it comes down to is I try to teach guys that perception is reality, and that everything about you conveys a image.
Right.
And that if you don't have that right image, it definitely hinders you, because you could be the best candidate and all the right answers could be coming out of your mouth. But if you don't have a suit coat, or if you didn't wear a suit to the job interview,
right,
none of it matters.
Nope, it doesn't.
Because all they're going to see is homeboy didn't suit up.
Yep.
Like, we don't mean enough for him to, and it sounds petty, but that's the way, that's the reality.
It is.
It's like showing up for a board in the military without your Class A's on.
Right.
Or whatever the uniform of the day is, like showing up. Instead, you show up for formation with PT gear on when it's not PT. It's
right.
like, so you have to look at it in that fact.
Yep.
Because that's what it is. So yeah, it gets real deep. It gets real whatever, but these are things that a lot of guys just don't get. They don't understand. They don't even know how to say hello. They don't know how to talk to people that, outside of the military. So what I kind of do is decode some of the military out of people and make at least be able to relate, kind of like a translator or a, or whatever, to go in and talk to people in the civilian setting.
Right.
That's mainly what I do. And then I also work with a lot of guys on job retention as well. So being able to cope and having the resiliency to deal with a totally different way of life. So working at, I don't know, pick a company. Working at Walmart is totally different than being in the military.
Right.
So I also teach guys how to relate to coworkers and interact with coworkers and all these things, and explain the, so one of the things too that I just set up, this is pretty awesome, is I was able to find a few employers that will do mock interviews.
Oh, nice.
So they're HR people, and they're going to come out and do just like mock interviews for like, a fictitious job. Well, what guys don't know, guys and gals don't know, is that these companies are all hiring. So in the past, they've actually hired people this way. So yeah, that's a little sneaky on my part, but why not? If you're going to do a mock interview, at least possibly have the possibility that something good could come out of it at the end, other than really good feedback. So that's one of those things that I've just set up too. And, all those little things just help guys and gals really get in. And that's the type of mentorship that I really focus on. And then, I also help. I really talk to men about being better men. But that's a whole nother episode, I think.
Yeah.
But that's also mentorship. So there's so many different layers. Yeah, man. I just love it. It's so natural for me.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like I'm saying this is what you need to do.
Right.
You need to do this. I really just kind of help guide and allow them to come up with the answers.
Mm-hmm.
But they have to be right. And that doesn't mean that I have some set outline of this is the way you live your life and this is the way that you succeed, because that's different for everyone.
Right.
And I have to stress that, especially to other people that do mentorship and coaching, is that you don't have some secret formula. So just knock it off.
Exactly.
My life is totally different than Eddie's. It's totally different than Jeff's. That's totally different from, Mike's.
Yep.
There isn't some secret sauce or magic pill or system that's going to help everyone succeed. It just doesn't work that way. So that is really a coach or a mentor getting out of their own way to allow them to just create. You need to create a environment that allows the mentee to really do the work, to really understand why they need to do things a certain way. And that's really my biggest take.
Yep. And
I'm just a facilitator, man. I'm not, I don't come up with answers. I just guide them to their answers.
Mm-hmm. Because things that work really well for one person that you've coached may not work so well for somebody else, because it's a different implementation. It's a different thought process, a different strategy for them. And so it's really the crux of it is at least laying out the foundation of, okay, here's some things you should consider, at least consider, right? Things you may not have even been aware before, things that you should consider. And then now that those are on your radar, how would you go about, approaching those or tackling those?
Well, right. It comes back down to, since the majority of our audience is military, it comes down to what is the final objective.
Right.
You said this earlier. And the path to get there isn't always the same for every unit.
Exactly.
So why would it be the same for every person in it?
That's a good example. Yeah.
So in turn, you have to not only have the plan, but you have to have a backup plan.
Yep.
And you have to have a backup to the backup, because this is one of the things that I find most important is you have to also teach and get people ready to have some resiliency, because Murphy, as we all know, is going to kick us in the nuts.
That's right.
All along this mission, because that's how it is. You plan out this mission. How many things actually come to fruition the way that they're planned? Probably 10% of it.
Yeah, if you're lucky.
And the other 90%, it's Frago after Frago after Frago.
Right.
Because you've got to change the way you're doing business, because it's not right. So one of the biggest things that needs to be implemented and taught is a way for that person to deal with that change, and deal with the disappointment, and deal with the, man, I didn't get that job because I did this or I did that, or you know what? Maybe you didn't get the job because they hired their cousin.
Right.
Yeah. So you have to understand that things are going to happen along the way. And you can't take it personally. It's part of this process.
That's right.
So you just have to get a little resiliency and understand how to deal with failure, how to deal with, and I'm not a big, we talk about failure a lot, but we're not, the one thing I want us to steer away from, and we have a little bit, is there's this big push towards failure porn, as I like to call it, which is, oh, you've got to fail to succeed. You have to, that's not always true.
Right.
Why don't you listen to really smart people and read really good books from really smart people that have made those mistakes already.
Mm-hmm.
And here, Eddie, let me show you how I made a mistake running my business.
Right.
So you don't make the same mistake. I'm so sick of this. You have to allow people to fail thing, which is totally true, with the caveat of if they can learn from your mistakes,
right.
that's what we're there for.
Mm-hmm.
So that's another huge aspect of all of this.
The biggest thing that I see with failure is essentially the fear of failure. It's when
totally right.
And it's when people don't do something, they choose not to execute because they're afraid of the potentiality of failure. And without even actually failing, they're making decisions not to do something or to do something differently because there's a potential that there might be some level of failure there. And that's where I think failure can be really hindering to a person. You've got to, it's not about, oh, I've got to fail in order to succeed or I've got to fail in order to learn a lesson. It's really more about don't be afraid to make a decision or to choose a course of action because you might fail. Failing is always that's always an option. Failure is
a great learning experience.
It is, but failure is always
part of the only way that we do learn.
Even in manufacturing, right? Where I work with engineers and quality folks. I mean, that's one of the things. It's like, I mean, you even hear it on MythBusters when they were going through. Have you ever watched that show, MythBusters?
Oh yeah, it's great.
I think
and I love all the checks and balances and everything, but that's why they're all there.
Yeah, but they said that failure is a result. Failure is an option. It's on the table. Every experiment they run, that is a potential failure.
And failure isn't always negative,
right? It is,
frankly. So but the kind of failure we're talking about is constructive failure,
right?
And I really like the point you bring up, the fact that fear of failure, that I think is one of the most debilitating, toxic things within the veteran community, and the community at large.
Right.
Is people don't do things just because they're afraid of that failure when, man, there's a 50-50 shot here.
Yep.
I mean, you want to do it, at least if you just go for it. But here's why mentors and coaches come in they're so invaluable, is because you can actually make the odds better in your favor. More like maybe you could go into running a business at an 80-20 success to failure ratio because you've got this guidance.
Yeah, you got something in your back pocket. Right.
So you've already made these mistakes. Now, how are you not going to make them? You've already got a plan on how to not make those mistakes.
Yeah.
So that's what's huge. That's what this is all about. Mm-hmm. And that's what we're talking about here. So the other thing, so go ahead because I know where you're going.
So we're gonna talk about Veterati. Now, this is something I think it all started. This all started, Bennett, when you posted. I don't remember where you posted, but it was on Facebook. You basically said, "Hey, what do you need? What can I do to help you today?" or something like that. Like what things do you need from me, or how can I help you, or something? The
exact post was, "Hey, veteran community, I encourage your success, and any way you think I can assist in gaining that success, let me know."
Right.
Because I read a lot. And that doesn't mean I'm reading books necessarily. I read social media posts. I go down threads, and I really get the pulse of a community from the way that they're talking to each other. Mm-hmm. And I got kind of pissed off that day of the lack of camaraderie within the veteran business community.
Right.
It really pissed me off that day. Some days it's great. Other days it's whatever, but I don't like other people basically blowing off vets that ask for veteran entrepreneurs, especially that are trying to do a startup or start a business. And then they've got the successful vet that they're reaching out to.
Yeah.
That doesn't give them the time of day.
Right.
And I know everyone's busy, but he just asked you a question on Facebook. What in a group, right? A group that you're a part of by choice, or you just haven't deleted yourself out of it because somebody added you.
Right.
Either way, you're being lazy in either way.
Yeah.
So either deal with the problem or answer this kid's question. It's a legitimate question. Literally take you know the answer off the top of your head because you've been there, done that, got the t-shirt. Literally take 5 minutes and help a brother out. Because that's what it would have taken.
Right.
And it was just like crickets, like just blew him off. And you know what? He might not have done it on purpose, whatever. I'm not going to judge that side of it. But this is what spurred this.
Right.
So then one of the comments was from our friend Eric Mitchell, will sign up on Veterati and mentor fellow veterans. Now, I've seen other mentorship platforms, like the Institute for Veterans and Military Families has one. There's a couple different military-driven platforms to do this type of work. But this one, I looked at it and immediately caught my eye. I was like, oh, this is slick.
Yeah, it is.
Right? So do you want me to give just a touch of background or do you have that?
No. Give us a background of Veterati and then I'll get into my experience. Well, get into your experience as well so far. And then I'll talk about kind of with my experience last night.
So basically the long and short is this former Marine, Dan Rau, R-A-U is how you say it, or that's how you spell his last name, messaged a entrepreneur named Diana. Oh, wow, I can't say her last name. Tsai. So would that be Sai?
Yeah, I think so.
On LinkedIn. Like they have a relationship on LinkedIn, and they talked about the career challenges faced by service members coming home. They launched a 2-week project to work together via Skype calls to mentor 6 of their friends and former Marines and into meaningful careers. In the process, they learned that transitioning is not a challenge for their friends, but also not, what was it? They learned that transitioning is not just a challenge for their friends, but also 1.5 million veterans coming home after 9/11. Dan and Diana realized they need backup to solve such a massive challenge. So that's when they created Veterati. I've looked for where the name came from and I can't find it. So that's a question that we need to pose out. Plus, we need to get these folks on the show, or at least Dan or somebody.
Absolutely.
So then finally, after all this work that they did, because this basically started it's only 2 years ago. So January of 2015, right?
Wow. Okay.
They did all this research and they did everything that you should do when you're planning for a business. They did market research. They did potential everything, and then finally in a whole year later, so January 2016, Veterati opened to the public as the app and website. And since they opened, you've got military. So it's open to service members, veterans, military spouses, and mentors across the country, right?
Yep.
And since opening, mentees have been averaging 3.7 mentor calls per active user. 98% of mentors report they want to mentor again. And compared with competitors, charging job applications for career coaches and guidance, Veterati has already provided $300,000 worth of free mentorship to veterans and military spouses. And then it just keeps going up. They partner with like Blue Star Families, and a couple other different companies like Verizon, the Student Veterans of America, Check Your Six, IAVA, and a couple other big time organizations. And that's, they partner with those orgs because then, or with those organizations and companies, so that this remains free to veterans and their families. So pretty cool story. And I literally signed up that day that Eric posted that on that post that I made. And within an hour, I already had a mentee.
Yeah.
And we'll, I don't start my first call until the end of because I'm going on vacation the second half of this month and this and that. I didn't want to shortchange anybody. So my first call is May 4th. But Eddie signed up the next day, because I told you that day, and then you signed up like the next day. And tell your experience now, which is pretty freaking awesome.
Yeah, so that's kind of the thing about us, Bennett, is you and I, we've developed a relationship to the point now where anything you recommend, whether it be, hey, check out this podcast episode, or check out this website, or this article, or whatever, like, I don't even like question it. I just do it. I just like, you know what I mean? And
yeah, same, and vice versa.
Right. But that's not this. I got to be honest. It's not that way with everybody in my network. A lot of people recommend things to me, and I may or may not check them out. But when you recommend something to me, I don't care what it is. I just know if you're putting it in front of me, that's something I need to do. I need to check it out. And this was one of those things. You were like, hey, did you check out that thing yet? And I was like, what are you talking about? And you're like, well, that thing that Eric posted underneath my post. I'm like, what's it called? And you're like, I don't know. It begins with a V. And I'm like, all right. So I went back to your post and I found Eric's comment, and there it was, Veterati. I'm like, I've never heard of it before, ever. I clicked on it. It took me to,
and I had never heard of it either. And that's like, where have you been?
Yeah, I know, right?
It's only been active for a year, so it's not out of the realm of possibility. But holy hell, bro!
Yeah, this definitely should have been something we were aware of.
I wish it should have been on my radar.
Yeah,
and I'm in the space, so it's like, why haven't I heard about this?
Yeah,
but anyway,
it's like that you go to an amusement park and there's like that one ride is the best ride, but
and nobody's heard
of it. They don't advertise it. There's no signs pointing to it. You stumble across it and you're like, holy shit.
It's like you see Veterati. Well, it's kind of like, think about it in the aspect of like Patreon.
Yeah.
Like, what the fuck is Patreon? Like, what is that? Like, patron spelled weird?
Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah. So when we get them on here, that's it. So far, until I get the background as to where that name came from, I'm not, full transparency here, I'm not a fan of the name. I'm just not. Veterati. It sounds like a car. It sounds like I'm hopping into like a sports car.
Yeah, Ferrari. Right.
Yeah. So, but whatever. I'm just putting the name aside, completely putting the name aside. I clicked on it. It took me to the website. And the user interface was so slick. It was so easy.
Bro.
I just clicked and actually connected. I signed up through the connection of my LinkedIn. It pulled through all of my LinkedIn profile information. I put a little bit of blurb in there about me. I filled out some demographic information about where I live and different types of things that I'm willing to talk to mentees. Because when you go to the site, you can sign up either as a mentee or a mentor.
Or both,
right? And so,
because everyone needs mentorship.
Absolutely,
even me, even Eddie.
Yep.
The thing that was so cool is that if you have a slick, or at least a decent LinkedIn page for yourself, it makes it 10 times easier because it populates most of the information.
Exactly. Right.
So very cool.
So I went in and you can select like days and times that you are available and how many mentor sessions, how many hours. They're broken into 1 hour sessions, and you can select how many sessions a month do you want to. So basically I set up my days and times of when I'm available during the week, and then I selected 4 hours a month just to start off with, just to get my feet wet. And so they will only book they will only allow people to book me 4 hours a month during the times and days that I've selected. And it automatically ties back to my calendar. And what they do is they take my profile and things that I'm willing to talk about, and they go through their pool of mentees and they try to find matches. And within 24 hours of me signing everything up and getting everything set, I actually received 2 mentees requested me to be their mentor. And one of them was as early as last night. So my first call was last night. And because this is a mentoring session, you know, it's all done in confidence. And so I'm not going to give the guy's name or really anything that we talked about because all that's private. But I will talk about kind of the experience and how that went, just so the listening audience can kind of get a sense for how it went. So what's really, really cool about Veterati is it's not only a desktop, but everything's connected through your phone. And so a day before, so once they find a match, they send you an email, and you can either accept it or decline it or, you know, cancel that meeting or whatever. So you get to choose whether or not you actually want to mentor that particular person that's requested you. And then once you've accepted it, it sends them a notification that the meeting has been accepted, and you can cancel or reschedule the meeting at any time. And then 24 hours before the meeting, I got a text message from Veterati. And one of the first things when you first sign up, they say, hey, save my number in your contacts on your phone because I'm going to be sending you text messages about your mentoring sessions in the future.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. So
because how many times do you forget shit and you're like, oh, fuck.
You're like, who's this calling me, right?
Right.
So that's exactly what I did.
Exactly.
I went in and I saved Veterati as a contact on my phone. And then 24 hours before the call, it says, hey, hold on, let me bring it up here so you can, I got all my text messages here from Veterati. So it basically says, hold on a minute. So there you go. I'll be connecting to you, to your mentees for mentorship phone calls in the future. Add me to your contacts. And so I did, and then I got a message that says, action needed. A mentee has requested you. Please confirm or decline here. So you can actually confirm or decline straight from your phone. It gives you a link. And then a little bit while later, I was like, action needed. Another mentee has requested you. Please confirm or decline here. So I was like, okay, there's 2 mentees. Boom, right out of the bat. And then yesterday or the day before yesterday, because my call was yesterday evening. So it was Friday evening at 6 p.m., 24 hours until your mentorship call with your mentee, and that gives the name of the person here. Curious about what mentee challenges you might come across in your conversation? Here are 3 common scenarios, and it gives you a link that you can go to, and it gives you 3 common scenarios that mentors may come across with mentees. If you need to reschedule, please log in your profile and change it here. It gives another link. And then an hour before my call last night, I got another text message. Your call with so-and-so is in 1 hour. Your mentee is seeking mentorship on exploring careers of interest. View your mentee's LinkedIn for additional background. It gives you a link there. And then 10 minutes until your mentorship call with so-and-so. If you missed the first call, our system will attempt to automatically redial. Here are 10 questions to break the ice. So it gives you a link, and it takes you to, and it's all mobile friendly, so you can do all this from your phone. Good luck. And then it ended up happening right at 6 o'clock last night. I get a phone call, and it's from Veterati, and I pick it up, and it says, we are connecting you with your mentee. Please, your mentee is on the phone. Please press 1 to be connected. So,
which is so freaking cool. You don't even have to do the work of calling the person.
Oh, no, it does it all for you.
So, like, when I heard all that, I was like, oh, this is badass. Because then I can't it makes it almost idiot proof for me.
Yes.
Because my memory is horrible. You know.
Yeah.
You know, how many times am I apologizing to you because, bro, I forgot to whatever.
Yeah.
Because even if I write it down, my brain is full, man. It's so freaking cool.
All right, folks. Well, that is going to do it for this episode of Change Your POV podcast. You can find all the show notes for everything we talked about by heading over to changeyourpov.com/episode 172. And tune in next week for the conclusion of this 2-part series where we continue to talk about mentorship and the power of Veterati on episode 174. Never miss an episode. Hit subscribe on your podcast player of choice. We have a lot more great content headed your way. And hey, come be a part of our community over at Change Your POV Squad Facebook group. We'd love to see you there. All right, until next time.